All right, everyone. Thanks for joining us for another Coyote radio show and podcast. Charlie Treats with us. And man, we've been talking for a little bit now. It seems like online here and there. And once I found out you were releasing some bluegrass, man, I got excited.
Yeah,
Uh,
man. It's good to see you, brother. I appreciate you having me on. The bluegrass is it's new for me, but it's also, something that's kind of been 20 years in the making too.
yeah. So since it's your first time on the show, can you kind of just give us the rundown how you got, where you grew up, how you got influenced to start doing music and what you kind of were around to kind of push you in that direction?
Yeah, absolutely. I grew up on a farm in Connecticut, and when I was 16, my father slipped a guitar into my bed and came into my room. I mean, he knew I was getting into it. When I was little, I wanted to be in the NFL. And then somewhere around 14, 15, or 16, I made a huge shift and like quit the team and like got in a fight with the coach and like started smoking weed and growing my hair. It was just like this huge shift when I was a teenager. And it's kind of funny because he's the one who got that guitar. But then like a few years later, I remember he like kicked down the door and was like screaming at me. He's like, if you don't get better grades, I'm gonna throw that guitar away, And I was like, but you're the one that got me the guitar. But yeah, immediately got into Woody Guthrie and Leadbelly and Dylan and Muddy Waters and all like the classic rock and stuff. And just kept digging from there. Like eventually, bluegrass, Bill Monroe, Flatt and Scruggs, and from a very young age, it was like the older the music, the better for me. I loved it and got made fun of for it, but just kept listening to it. And started writing songs when I was 15 or 16 years old. When I was 20, I saved up a couple $1,000s. I got in my car and I disappeared. And my parents had no idea where I was. And I just started basically traveling around the country, sleeping in my car and busking for gas money and looking for what city I wanted to settle down in and start making music. Ironically, I went around the whole country and then ended up back in Boston. And that's where I stayed for 8 years, I think it was, before I moved to Nashville. And just did the folk thing there, just the guitar. And it wasn't until I moved down here that I got a band and like made full band records.
Right. That's great. That's quite the journey. Yeah, I'm obsessed with the folk stuff. Even currently right now, I got the banjo back there. I think I messed around for like 3 hours last night and maybe a half hour before I started this. I just keep going down the rabbit hole and stuff,
Yeah. Yeah, it doesn't stop. I mean, it's that way with any tradition, but there's always like something that came before the person you think invented something, and it just gets richer and richer. How's the banjo going? Are you figuring out the rolls? They're pretty tough.
Well, I started playing banjo almost 10 years ago.
Oh,
And
so
that's when I was doing the Scruggs rolls and that sort of thing. But that's not what I ever wanted to do. That's
I
just
didn't even
the
know
only
that
thing
about you.
available around here.
Yeah.
So I do a little more claw hammer and mess around with two fingers, some of that old stuff,
Cool.
But yeah, I'm just mixing it up. It's just for fun. It's good for the brain.
I just got a banjo recently. It's nothing special, but it was signed by Tony Trishka. And it was like $150, and it's metal and it's nothing special, but I'm gonna put a pickup in it and start experimenting with that.
You bought it signed for 150, or did you buy it for 150 and have him sign it?
I bought it for 150, signed by him and signed by somebody else that none of us can figure out. And who knows if it's a legitimate? I mean, I'm guessing it is, because why would? I mean, it doesn't make it like extraordinarily valuable, but
right.
Yeah, I'm trying to brush up on my banjo chops.
Yeah, you play a bunch of instruments, right?
I do. I can dabble with just about anything, but I tell people I would never hire myself out for anything besides maybe like piano and harmonica.
Yeah,
But I can play a little fiddle and a little mandolin, a little banjo, and guitar and piano for sure.
yeah. So your first record that you just put out not too long ago, pretty much during the pandemic,
Yeah,
um, that's totally a different switch up from what you're getting ready to release. You
absolutely.
just wanted something new and fresh, or just like you're gonna go back to that, or you don't even know. You're just what feels right now.
It's what feels right now. I went into the new year with a head of steam, and I told myself I'm going to record the rootsiest thing I've ever done, and then I'm going to come behind it with like the poppiest, most contemporary thing I've ever done. So um, I've already got the guys lined up, and we'll probably be getting in there in the next couple months, and we're going to do like a, like a synth bass. It'll have real drums. I don't think I'm going to go as far as sampling drums, but I'm not opposed to it. We'll just see where it goes. But I've got a whole bunch of songs that are leaning in that direction of just being like whatever my version of modern pop music is. And I tend to like overstate that, and then my friends laugh at me and they're like, this is roots music. But yeah, that was the goal for the new year, was to do the rootsiest thing I could do and do as quickly as possible. We tracked it in 3 days. We did overdubs on the fourth day and it was done. And it was all live vocals, live everything.
That's awesome.
Yeah, that's the way I want to make records. That's the way my heroes made records. And I love that record we did last year, but it took us damn near 2 years by the time it was on Spotify and everything.
Yeah,
I don't ever want to
it's
do
a
that
lot of
again.
work.
Yeah,
Finally get it out there.
yeah, it's too much.
Yeah, there's
Time.
something about live cut, even the whole record, live cut records, not just live vocal or whatever. It's I don't know. They hold their own place in time, and it's just like how it was in that moment, and you can't duplicate that.
I agree. And it's kind of like fight or flight. It's like if you set that challenge up for yourself and you're ready for it, I think you actually get a better product than if you've got all year long to second guess yourself and go for a better take. It's like, you only got that one day to do it. So it's like some
Yeah,
divine intervention comes into play.
right. Yeah, you could overanalyze, overthink it, and then you end up just kind of making it muddy and just trashing the whole thing up.
Yeah, you give yourself a good challenge and you actually make better art. Butter art.
Butter art.
Butter art.
So you got a new song getting ready to come out. We've already heard a couple: Motor, Mama Hen. Great
Yeah,
driving tunes. I love them.
I appreciate it, man.
I definitely hear some you're channeling a little bit of Del McCurry there in that Motor. I can hear that high
Yeah.
lonesome. It's great.
Well, that's flattering. I mean, he's one of my heroes. I got to see him. Well, we probably both got to see him at Birds Creek.
Yeah, that that was that's why I missed your set. I was mad that I missed your set, except for like maybe one song, because I was able to talk to Dale for a little while,
Yeah.
and he signed a record for me and stuff. So I was, but yeah, he's a great performer even to this day. Not
He
too many
blew us
legends
all
out
away.
there.
It was a religious experience.
Yeah, I think
He's
everybody was
he's like
captivated. Everybody was shutting up and just like zoned in. Even all the other
spellbinding.
bands
Yeah.
there were watching.
Yeah. 83 years old and just as sharp as ever. I love that motorcycle song.
Yeah. Um. So what's the rest of the record got in store? Are you going to slow it down any, or are you going to get your own spin? I'm sure you got your own spin on bluegrass itself, but you know
Yeah,
how
it's
it is.
definitely
Some of
me.
the purists versus.
Yeah. It's definitely my most, I would say, honest and autobiographical record that I've done. And it's poetic, but it's not like esoteric to where like you can't understand what I'm talking about. You know what I mean? It's just like, it's just kind of honest, bare bones songwriting. And it's all true. I mean, there's one song where it's like about my buddy, but I'm using the first person. So there's little stuff like that that you'd have to have like talked to me about it. But I've been pretty open about, it's very much a Sierra record in our relationship. The songs that aren't about her are about real people or about things that have happened to me. The song that's coming out Friday is very much an autobiographical song, in the beginning, but it's also about how me and her got to meet. And, we went on a motorcycle ride through the country, and we ended up swimming, and it was November 7th. So it'll be almost 2 years to the day. It was November 7th, 2020. We went out and just jumped on the bike and grabbed some weed and jumped in the water at like 5 p.m. It was freezing cold. And so it's stuff like that. And that was refreshing in itself, to not try to come up with something larger than life, but just tell a story and tell it exactly as it happened. And
Right.
Yeah, tempo wise, I made a point to, some of the songs were written, but a lot of the songs were written right up until like the days we were tracking. Some of them were written like the night before and stuff like that, like the week of tracking. But I made a point to inject some tempo into this record, so it's mostly up tempo songs. There's for sure 2 slower ballads on it, but I made a point to just do some up tempo songs in G and make it a bluegrass record.
Yeah. Are you gonna tour behind this or have some shows or anything?
Definitely doing a release show. I've done a couple already that have been like 3-piece, 2, 3, 4-piece, like, roots shows just around. Did North Carolina and St. Louis last couple weekends. So I'm just gonna see what comes of it. I mean, so far people like it a lot. And if a label is interested, or a festival or whoever, I am by no means opposed to forming a bluegrass band. With that said, the guys that I normally play with, who have been playing with me for the last 5 years, are kind of chomping at the bit to get back into playing rock and roll music, so we'll just see what comes. And I've played some of the new songs with the band and haven't really changed the arrangement, and there's just like electric bass and drums behind them. Some of them lend themselves that way.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
we've started like covering like rearranging like Bill Monroe and Flatt and Scruggs and like Jimmy Martin songs, to where they're like sound like a gospel song or a pop song or like an indie rock song. And
That
the guys have been good enough to let me to let the gospel train start playing bluegrass songs.
right. The one you did with Sierra, the Stanley Brothers cover.
Yeah.
When I heard that, man, I was blown away. I loved
Me
it.
too. Me too. I appreciate that.
They're Carter family or Stanley Brothers. They're up there. I mean, they're probably my top 5, especially when Carter was alive, as a harmonizing duo. So yeah, that you guys made it something so different, but it worked. Like, it didn't sound like, covers are hard. Some people just mess them up. But
Yeah,
that was
cover.
great. It was refreshing.
I appreciate that. The comments are funny because some people you can just tell they're pissed off, and they're like, Stanley Brothers would be rolling around in their grave if they heard this. And other people are like, this is exactly what, roots music need. The last couple of years, you can maybe see it on top of my piano. I got all these songbooks.
Yeah.
And when I'm not writing songs, I just get those out and I rearrange old traditional songs. So it's kind of become a thing in the last couple of years of just taking old bluegrass songs or like American songbook songs and rearranging them. And bringing them into the new world. You know, of course, that one was like very much like a 60s soul song, but it's nothing like anyone's ever done it before, for better or worse. And Sierra can sing anything. She can sing soul. She can sing
Yeah.
pop. She and I started working on that within like the first week of when we met. Because frankly, I just didn't know how to play a bluegrass song on the piano. So I just played it like a soul song, and she sang it like Aretha Franklin, like she does.
Yeah, man. I've said it a couple times on the show that I think she's gonna win a Grammy at some point. Female
Oh yeah,
vocalist or something crazy. Her train ride's been wild.
yeah. She's like quickly launching into the stratosphere. She's in LA right now, hanging out with Harry Styles,
Yeah. You know.
and like so, like that's the company she keeps. And she's been working on pop music.
Yeah, sky's the limit.
Yeah, she can do whatever she wants.
Yeah. So when's the full release of this new record?
November 18th is the digital release, so it'll hit all platforms. And talking to D's now, we're gonna do either a December, but it looks more likely like a January record release show. And then this next single comes out Friday, the 4th, and that'll be the last single before the record comes out. And I've got hard copies too. I've got CDs, and I'll probably print some vinyl next year.
Yeah. What the next song that's getting ready to drop? What's that one about? Can you give us a little insight?
That's the one about me and Sierra meeting and getting on the motorcycle and
Okay.
going swimming.
Yeah. I think did you guys post a picture about jumping in the water somewhere during that time? I feel like I saw you guys laying in a creek somewhere a couple of years ago on a video.
Oh, that was something else.
Something else. Okay. I didn't know
we're
if it was
laying in the
related.
creek, that was like a one-off show in Colorado. And I'm sure I know I posted about it when we went, but it was just like a picture or two. Yeah, she was a good sport about it. She told me later, she was like, well, I liked you, and I knew this was a test to see if I was cool enough to like jump in the water in November. And but yeah, we got on the motorcycle and got like 2 or 3 hours out of town, and it was just one of those like freak like 70-degree days in November. And I was like, fuck it, let's go. And she went along for the ride, and it was, like I said, it was like almost dark by the time we got there, but we jumped in and wrote a song about it. But it's more than that. It's about us meeting, and we have very different backgrounds. And
Yeah.
I don't want to say too much. We'll hear it. And there's a music video. I think it premieres tomorrow through Bluegrass Situation. And then I'll make it live. I'll probably make it live Friday along
Nice.
with the single.
That's awesome, man. Well, I'm glad you guys are doing good and making good music.
I appreciate it, man.
Keeps me busy. I can't keep up with everybody.
Well,
The music market is just crazy right now. It's getting flooded. A lot of it's good, but a lot of it's trash. So
yeah,
I think you're
I mean,
doing good
especially this
stuff.
day and age where everyone can have Pro Tools and GarageBand, like that's going to happen. But the cream rises to the top. Like I don't, I'm not against people releasing DIY music at all.
No.
If the good stuff is going to get listened to and spread around, and there's got to be like a gatekeeper, or like quality control somewhere or another. But yeah, I mean, I don't know if it's just because we're both into it, but you look at the talent in the roots and Americana world right now, and I think it's as good as it's ever been.
In the Americana scene, I've definitely out of all my years of just messing with music and listening, and I'm the most drawn I've ever been to that category of music as far as Americana goes. So
Yeah,
there's something to be said for that. So you're probably right. I'd have to agree with that.
yeah, it definitely comes and goes in waves. Like, what was it, 2010 when the Grammys was like, Avett Brothers and Mumford and Sons, and I think Bob
Yep.
Dylan. They all sang Maggie's Farm together. And truth be told, I don't love either of those bands. I got nothing against them, but they're not like my favorite bands. Um, but it was cool to see the banjo on the Grammys for the first time in a long time. And it gets a
Yeah.
whole generation into that music, and if they're smart, then they start looking at their influences and their influences. And fewer and fewer people listen to traditional music. So it's, I think it's important to keep the history alive. And, families used to just sit around and pick songs. That's
Yeah.
that's like dead art now. That's not what families do anymore. So love to see that
Every
you're
Friday,
playing.
come on over. We're just picking and we'll fry some chicken.
Right. It's like there was no
Yeah.
TV. Like maybe you go to the movies once in a while or something, but like that was how people entertained themselves. And that's how stories got told, the oral tradition, all those traditional songs. No one knows who wrote them. That's all becoming extinct now. So and that's part of the reason why I'm like, well, why don't we just take these great tunes and make them sound like a pop song?
Yeah.
Like why not expose them to a larger generation and larger groups of kids?
Can see that. Who would you say, like, I don't know, maybe you've listed some names, but who would you say your favorite, like top 3 all-time artists are?
Paul Simon, Bob Dylan. I love me some Kurt Cobain. Hank Williams Sr.
It's a good list. That's a
Yeah,
variety.
Guy Clark, Towns, all those guys, like those Texas guys.
Yeah.
Yeah, that would be my top, whatever that was, top 5 or 6.
Right. Yeah, I can't. It depends what day you ask me, but
Yeah. Yeah.
so, right
Yeah,
on, man.
there's so many good writers out there. There's so many that never got credited. They were just part of like the Tin Pan Alley scene that, we'll never know who they were.
Yeah. Well, that's one thing that you can say is good about the internet and social media, that you can dig and find that stuff. It's available. YouTube has quite a bit, going down that rabbit hole of stuff.
There's great stuff on YouTube. There's stuff on YouTube that you can only find on YouTube.
Such as,
Just like live cuts and like studio outtakes that aren't on Spotify or iTunes.
okay, yeah.
Like YouTube is the shit that way.
Dude, next time I come down to Nashville, I gotta show you this record. I've showed this a couple times on some other shows. I don't know where anyone can find this. It's
Holy shit.
it's the Stanley Brothers. It was the last live show they did before Carter passed away, and it happened to be in Brown County, Indiana, which is 40 minutes south of me, in 1966.
That's so cool.
And I bought it from Ralph at the table, and he signed it. And this isn't on Spotify. I haven't seen this anywhere. I don't know.
Yeah.
It was just one of those old school things where I think they just set up a microphone and recorded their live show and had it in the vault. And when he passed away, they just like, hey, let's sell some of these.
Right.
So there's like
Right.
22,
He's probably just trying to make a little
songs on
bit extra money and just had some extra copies laying around.
it. Yeah. I mean, it's
That's
nothing
amazing.
fancy. It was wild. I have yet to find that anywhere else, but I'm sure it's out there. I just don't know, where.
What year did you see him?
That had to be 2008 or 9.
Yeah, I saw him around then too.
I've seen him a couple times because we have the Bill Monroe Bluegrass Festival here, the campground he used to own, Bill.
Uh-huh.
And they would frequent it back like over the years. Larry Sparks still, so Bobby Osborne and those guys would come.
Cool.
So they were come like almost every year.
Yeah.
So I've seen them
Where are
come a
you
few
at?
times. I'm in central Indiana.
Cool.
So Brown County's just south central Indy.
Yeah.
So it's a beautiful area.
Is that Larry Bird land?
He would be more, he'd further south, but yeah, the whole state's Larry Bird Lane, really.
Yeah.
Or Reggie Miller if you're basketball.
Yeah.
How'd you become a Dolphins fan? I noticed you're a Dolphins fan.
Man, when I started playing football when I was like 6 or 7, and my best friend who got me into it was a Dolphins fan. So it just stuck. And then of course it's like Ace Ventura and Dan Marino,
Dan
was
Marino.
like actually good. Like they were actually good then. So yeah, I've just been diehard. I haven't switched over.
Yeah.
And they're looking pretty good this year. They just made a couple acquisitions yesterday.
I don't even want to talk about the Indianapolis Colts, man. It's rough over here these past few years.
Yeah.
We've had a new quarterback every year. It's like they've already canned him and on to the next one.
Yeah, Matt Ryan was not the move.
No.
No, he's old.
Well, buddy, I appreciate you sit down and filling me in, and hopefully the release goes well. If I can get down there, I'll get a hold of you.
Yeah, it may not be till January, so I'll definitely let you know. I appreciate you having me on. I appreciate your support and following me, and
Yeah.
you've been a champion of my music since we met. So I appreciate that.
Yeah, keep it up. We need
Thanks,
it.
man. Yeah.
So, all right, everyone else. If you want to go through the backlog, there's over 60 interviews. We're on YouTube. We got the websites launched now. That's Coyote Radio Show and podcast.com. And I got t-shirts being made. And so we're going to have some merch. And eventually, well, we got a Patreon page too, if you want to give us a tip and keep the show rolling. So,
Keep the show rolling.
yeah. You got a website or anything you want to plug, Trent? Or
I do. It's charlietreat.com. Instagram is kind of more the way of the world these days. So I'm on there, and obviously Spotify, iTunes, all those places.
perfect. Link in the description.
Yeah, exactly.
All right, buddy. Well, you enjoy your evening, and we'll talk to you soon.
You as well. Hit me up if you're in town.